Well, there were so many different stories during 2020. For business, one of the biggest was digital transformation, how companies and organizations adapted. Saudi Arabia is part of that. The moderator from the previous session, Jim Butcher at Neon, is part of that group, luring high technology companies to work in Saudi Arabia. At the same time, we have sea changes in the United States. A new Biden administration may not take the same aggressive approach to reining in the big technology firms that his predecessor did. Policy and technology are very hot topics. With me to discuss cracking the code, very pleased to have two eminent people on stage with me. Minister of Communications and Information Technology, His Excellency Abdullah Amer Al-Swaha. Also, the President and CEO of Saudi Aramco, Mr. Amin Nasser. Thank you for joining me here in Riyadh. And joining us momentarily on screen, we have the Executive Chairman of Raytheon Technologies, Dr. Tom Kennedy. Let's start with our hosts here in Riyadh. Thank you for having me, by the way.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, tell me about your views on the future of technology policy.
Thank you, Edie. In this new norm, regulators and policymakers must appreciate that we have so much dynamism in the world. We're living in the Great Reset, where we have to innovate and regulate. And those are the three core principles that every regulator must adopt. That regulation has to be dynamic, with a regulatory reset, and with an innovative approach. And if I could share with you two examples. I remember during Q1, one of the toughest decisions and emergency meetings that we had as a cabinet was discussing the lockdown. It was a tough decision. And kudos and thank you to the healthcare professionals and heroes. Within that meeting, everybody was looking at me, asking me, is our entrepreneurs ready to provide food supplies, medical supplies, and emergency services to support the 33 residents and citizens of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? And the answer was, within 48 hours, yes. And the only way we were able to do it is that we had to pivot from a regulatory perspective to shift from food to medical supplies to pharmacies, and that was the dynamism we had to do. On a regulatory reset, one of the earlier requirements we had was the fact that you had to provide payment channels, that is both physical and digital. And we had to refine that requirement with a reset button by saying to them, only go with digital. This shifted and accelerated the push to a cashless society in which fintech has boomed within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with a 40% penetration and the first billion-dollar valuation unicorn. On an innovative approach, and here I have to commend my good colleague Amin, the CEO of Aramco, we appreciated that we needed to push the cloud agenda. So when we heard to the investors, Aramco and Google, they asked us to make the push to the cloud, and we introduced the cloud-first policy. So this agility and execution and speed yielded us today one of the largest tech and digital MENA investments with more than $1 billion between Google and Aramco. So these are concrete examples, Edie, about how regulators and policymakers in the new norm have to meet with dynamism, with a regulatory reset and the Great Reset, and with innovation.
Fascinating. Thank you. We'll come back to our guests here. Let's go to Dr. Tom Kennedy. Thank you for joining us. We've heard from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. What are you seeing from governments around the world in terms of promoting technology? As nations rush to achieve digital transformation, is there anything they're overlooking?
Well, I would say I'll give you two examples of things I think that are being overlooked. So I'll first address the first one, and it's really the cybersecurity element. We are introducing quite a bit of technology, and you'll hear a little bit more about the digitalization transformation that is going on. But when you connect everything becomes vulnerable. We've just recently seen the impacts of that relative to the SolarWinds nation-state hack. that significantly impacted countries around the world and also many, many businesses around the world, including their supply chains. So I think the one area as we move forward relative to policy, we're going to have to ensure that we have a good lock on how cybersecurity is being integrated in to these digital transformations, especially from a zero trust perspective architectures moving forward. That's one area that I'm seeing. The other area that we're seeing is in the whole digital transformation. Many of the larger companies, the nation states, are making a great inroads into digitization. And COVID-19, by the way, has accelerated that transformation. But what we are concerned about is the supply chain. A lot of the supply chain is composed of smaller businesses that don't have the wherewithal to be able to take on a major digital transformation effort here without some type of help and some type of government help. In some cases, for example, like tax credits would be great. So that's the two areas that I would recommend more emphasis be put on in different countries. One, again, is the cybersecurity for this big digital transformation. And number two, making sure we don't forget about the supply chain and make sure we can bring them along relative to this digital transformation.
Thank you. Mr. Nasser, let's come back to you. The oil industry is aging. Now, I speak as somebody who has benefited enormously. My father worked for Chevron, was an engineer, but I'd love you to tell me how Aramco is adapting. What kind of the disruptive emerging technologies is Aramco leveraging?
Thank you, Edie. I'd like to first thank FII and BIF for organizing this forum under such difficult circumstances, and appreciate the opportunity to participate. Quite the opposite, we are benefiting a lot from technologies. We are seeing the accelerated improvements in technologies that we are adapting currently. If I look at Saudi Aramco and the technology in Saudi Aramco, we benefit in discovery, we benefit in recovery, we benefit in cost optimization, efficiency and reliability, of course, also in carbon emission. A lot to do with data analytics. We use seismic, we use simulation models that started with 1 million cell simulation models. Now we are using 1 trillion cell simulation models to manage our reservoirs. And for that, we need a lot of platforms, algorithms, data analytics. And recently, we just inaugurated one of the biggest 10 supercomputers globally in Dhahran Techno Valley in collaboration with STC, Cray Computing, and support of also from IBM. This data analytics is helping us to improve our recovery, where we have the best recovery in the world. We're replacing our crude and gas production every year. We are, in terms of our recovery, it is one of the highest in the world. We are reaching up to 70%, all because of technology, and data analytics is playing a major part in helping us to place wells in the best reservoirs using satellites. We are today geosteering every well in the kingdom using satellites from one center in Dhahran. We are managing all our equipments through 1/4 Industrial Revolution Center in Dhahran, where all data, pressure, temperature, vibration, coming to one center in Dhahran, and we're looking at the health of our equipment. Our reliability currently is the highest because of data analytics, because of all of these technologies, fourth industrial revolutions, digitization, and the application of these technologies. Our reliability for 2020 is 99.8%, one of the highest in the world in terms of delivery. Carbon emissions, a lot of people look at carbon emission. We benefited from technologies and data analytics and placement of wells to reduce our water production, water handling, and the amount of energy that would be required to bring that water from the subsurface to the surface, and then you need to re-inject it again and get rid of it. That would require a lot of energy. That's why our cost is the lowest, our carbon emission is the lowest, all helped and augmented by these technologies. So the industry is moving a great deal in terms of implementing, adapting, using data analytics, in terms of improving our performance.
Thank you. Your Excellency, in a world shaped by risk as well as opportunities, what regions and economies do you think offer the greatest opportunities for investors and innovators in 2021 and even beyond?
Edie, with so much VUCA in the world, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, the future belongs to those that are digitally resilient. And this generation and next generations, Edie, will not forgive us if we don't double down and invest and innovate in digital. Because digital in 2020 have showed us not only to be the largest economic multiplier and social equalizer, but it kept our social fabric intact. It kept our economies interconnected, and definitely it was the environmental preserver. So socially, it was the only way for our loved ones to receive care outside of the ICU room. And if we look globally, we moved from 200 million virtual consultations to 1 billion consultations, and in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we've seen the same rate. As a matter of fact, we've partnered with one of our key partners today with us, Babylon Health, on implementing data and AI in healthcare to reduce the cost to serve in healthcare to $1 when we deliver a full virtual consultation by machine. If I move on economically, it definitely interconnected us to the rest of the world. If you look at the digital trade today, it's shifting from west to west to east to west, and Saudi is at the center of this. Not only that, during 2020, some of the G20 nations dropped from the top 10 list, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia became number 7 globally in terms of internet speed and quality, but we became the fastest in terms of 5G quality and coverage. In terms of capacity and talent, we became number 9 globally, and environmentally, on the 10th of January, His Royal Highness announced the line at NEOM, the next urban model for the next 150 years, because throughout the past 150 years, throughout the 4 industrial revolutions, we've managed to put cars and roads first and not people. So today we're delivering a model with 0 emissions, 100% renewable. And Amin spoke about some of the innovations that we've seen in the oil and gas industry, how we're leveraging data to reduce the uplift cost and to deliver one of the lowest carbon intensities in the world. And this is why today we're pivoting not only to become the thermal energy leader in the world, but the renewable and sustainable energy leader in the world, where we announced a $5 billion major investments with Air Products in green hydrogen. And it's no wonder that the EU Center for Digital Competitiveness, when they evaluated the G20 nations, ranked the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as the #1 digital riser.
Thank you. Dr. Kennedy, tell me, how do you drive innovation?
Well, it's a daily topic. It's when I get up in the morning, I think about how we can do better. Companies, my competitors are trying to do the same thing, but it's all about changing and letting innovation apply to everything we do, not just the products that we deliver, but how we deliver those products, all the way in terms of the back room and some of the technologies that are coming on board here at this great speed. Most of our back offices are now run by software bots or software robots. We've connected the whole back room from the beginning to the end processes and taking significant cost out of our business. And I would say one thing about COVID-19 on this. COVID-19 has forced us to accelerate our digital transformation. For example, in a 2-week period, we transitioned 100,000 employees over to a remote working capability. And I can tell you that was not in our initial plan in January of in 2020 to go put that kind of an effort forth. But we did that, and we didn't miss a beat. We made our deliveries to our customers. We had to work through a lot of issues around the globe relative to policies that were being taken relative to essential workers and keeping factories open. But we were able to get through that with the different governments and negotiations on that part. But in the end game, it was all about innovation. How can we innovate around this COVID-19? How can we accelerate our digital transformation? How could we connect all our processes in our back rooms using software bots that are based on machine learning? And I think the bottom line is we're at an exponential growth of technology out there today. In fact, we are at what I would call the knee in the curve of an exponential curve. And technology is just taking off. So there's ways to innovate things that we thought we couldn't innovate in before. And it's being done day in and day out at my company, but also at other companies around the world and also at different governments. And you heard some of the speakers talking about that. The bottom line is we continually innovate. We have technology working groups that are looking for the next generation technologies to be able to be inserted not just in our products and our solutions, but also into our business processes.
Thank you.
So it's a complete, I would call it, overall effort across the entire company, and it's not just being an innovation center at some low level in the company. It's throughout the company.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kennedy. And Mr. Nasser, we're going to let you off your last question because unfortunately in my ear I'm being told we have to depart. But thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time today in discussing policy, technology, and the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edie.